Good morning, everybody. Not early morning, just morning. If you can give us some green check marks, we were having issues with this earlier, but I'd like to see if it's working now. And then we'll get going. Thanks, Josh. And Anthony. I don't know, Connor's been in for a while. I'm not sure if he's going to stick around. He's in the other math. Emery was just here, just went to away. I don't know where he's gone. Oh, back, maybe? No? All right, well, anyways, thank you for logging in. We today are going to do the last section of the volume, Unit 3 stuff. So I just want to make sure that everyone's kind of on track. And because this is the last section, you guys will have some work to do, and then we'll kind of wrap this up next day. If you guys have finished the learning guide and things like that, we'll look at it today. If you finish the learning guide, you can just submit it. I'll mark it and send it back to you, and then I'll give you guys the password for the test. So I might have gone through this before. I'll just go through it again because it's now something you'll probably encounter in the next few days. Once you submit your learning guide, I mark it, I give you some comments. This was good, this needs work, look at this, watch this, careful with this. And then I send an email to your parents saying, hey, your student's done their learning guide. You need to supervise them to write their test. So this will be the Unit 3 test. So at the very bottom of Unit 3, it says Unit 3 test. If you click on that, this tells you about the test, and it says time limit an hour. I'll take that off. But what you need to do is it'll say start attempt or something like that, and you click on it, and then it'll ask you for the password. I don't know if this is the right password or not. Let's try it. No. So anyways, I'll send you the password. You just click continue once you enter the password, and then you write the quiz. I think it's 20 questions. It might be a little shorter than that. And it's exactly the same as the quiz that you guys have done as well. So that is how you're going to access the quiz for the end of the unit. So before we get there, we need to finish up this unit anyways. So let's jump over to the learning guide. So this is the learning guide for Unit 3. We've gone through volume surface area type questions. We dealt with some composite shapes, so two shapes combined together, a cone and a cylinder, like the example behind me here. We've done a half sphere, a hemisphere, a cone, a cylinder. Did this one pyramid with a rectangular prism. We looked at a couple. When you start doing pyramids, sometimes you have to deal with the Pythagorean theorem to find the slant height for some of the different shapes. So just remember that if you have the height, sometimes the formula deals with slant height. So that's kind of what we talked about last day. And then I asked you guys to try these, and I circled a bunch of questions for you guys to do. Now, did anybody have any questions about the questions I asked of you? And if you did, you can just put in the number into chat, and I can go through it with you. Or if everybody is just cruising along and wants to move on, we can do that as well. Let's give you guys a second to put in anything there. What I want to do today is I want to start into this volume and capacity. And it's not a super long unit. It's pretty straightforward. But when I was going through the learning guide, I was going through it last week, just doing some of the problems, and I got really frustrated. And I'm thinking if I'm getting frustrated doing this stuff, then you guys are going to be really frustrated. So I'm going to try to just make it as simple as possible, giving you guys kind of the bare minimum of what you need. Not the bare minimum, but the necessities. That's a better way of putting it. And then give you guys some time to go through it. It's kind of weird. I had to ask another teacher who taught this, and she said, yeah, in the course, if they ask you to do like a volume conversion, they'll give you the conversion. So I was looking at the formula sheet that's in the course here, and of course this one doesn't have any of the volumes on it. Has a few here. 1 liter is 1.06 quarts. 1 liter is 0.26 US gallons, 1 gallon's 4 quarts, a British gallon 6/5 US gallons. So all of these sort of conversions, and I don't know, I think I'm just so, like, I've grown up with the metric system. It just seems kind of bizarre to have pints and quarts and all this other stuff with these bizarre, non-obvious numbers to convert. So I just got kind of flustered and I'm like, I don't want to do this. So I did it anyways, and let's just see if we can get through it together. So basically there's two different imperial systems. You have your United States imperial, and then you have the British imperial. Now in the United Kingdom, they moved away from their imperial system once they joined the European Union, and then now they voted to leave the European Union, so there's talk of moving back from metric units in the United Kingdom back into their imperial system. So anyways, the conversions and all the things we talk about here, some of them show up on your formula sheet, some won't. If a question asks you to do a conversion, like on a quiz or a test, it will give you the conversion you need. So in the learning guide it's a bit tricky because they just assume that you have everything kind of at your fingertips. But in the test and the quizzes, if you are asked to do a volume conversion, you'll be given the conversion factor. So don't think that you have to memorize all this stuff, because I don't know half of it. So it turns out there is 16 fluid ounces FLOZ, fluid ounces, in a pint in the United States. And if you were to ask for a pint in the United Kingdom, that would be 20 fluid ounces. Now, if anybody's ever maybe visited the States, you buy a can of pop. It doesn't say 355 milliliters on it. It'll say, whatever, 8 fluid ounces or something like that. And gas is measured in gallons in the United States, and these are all the sort of volume measures that they use there. What's the base unit for volume in SI? So all of the SI units, volumes based on the liter. And then I had to search for the UK and the US, but I didn't really find anything. I even looked in the lesson. We'll call it fluid ounces for now. That's kind of their base unit. And then they have pints. I think the lesson said pints, but then I looked it up online and it said something else. So I just kept on getting more and more confused when I was going through this stuff. The important thing here is that we can convert back and forth between the systems. So a fluid ounce is 29.57 milliliters, which is 0.02957 liters. And remember, when we moving from milliliters to liters, we just divide by 1,000. And then in the US system, they have something called a pint, which is 16 fluid ounces. So to get from a fluid ounce to a pint, you just multiply essentially by 16. So 29.57 times 16 is 473 milliliters, or 0.473 liters. I could put this in here. This is 16 fluid ounces, just to remind ourselves what a pint is. So in metric, we have milliliters, and we have liters, and that's kind of it. That's where we measure our volumes in. You could talk about centiliters and deciliters and kiloliters if you wanted to, but generally speaking, we have milliliters and liters, just the two things. In the imperial system, they have ounces, they have pints, and then the next thing from a pint is a quart, and a quart is 2 pints. So it's just double what we had before, so 946 milliliters, or 0.946 liters. So a quart is really, really close to a liter, just a little bit bigger than a liter. And then we go from quarts to gallons. And it turns out that there are 4 quarts to the gallon. So we just need to multiply this 946 by 4, and we get 3,785. Or 3.785 liters. All right. So that's kind of the metric imperial conversions in terms of volume. Those are the ones you'll run into a lot. You can maybe see where I got a little bit frustrated because from milliliters to liters, everything's just moving a decimal place back and forth. You're going, but then, you know, the US system starts with a fluid ounce, and then there's 16 ounces in a pint, which is fine. But then you go to the next step, instead of it being like 16 again, now you're at 2. So there's 2 pints in a quart. And then you think, okay, maybe there's 2 quarts in a gallon, but no, it's 4. So it just kind of leaves me scratching my head. I'm just going to complain about the imperial system the whole class, I think, is what it comes down to. All right, so example number 4 is some really, really common things you run into in recipes. So I, believe it or not, make some food once in a while, and you know, you go and look at a recipe and it says, you know, add 5 teaspoons or, you know, whatever. Teaspoons and tablespoons, these are all sort of imperial measures that are very common. It's almost impossible to go to a recipe that doesn't have things measured in teaspoons and tablespoons and cups. So we should be able to convert back and forth between these things as well. So it tells us in the example that a teaspoon is 5 milliliters. So that is a conversion from imperial to metric. 1 teaspoon, 5 mils. Fair enough. So if I had 1 teaspoon is 5 milliliters, I could start with that because it's given right here in the question. And then I can kind of work from there and fill out the rest of this table given some of the stuff I know already. So if I have 1 teaspoon is 5 milliliters, if I have half a teaspoon, I'm just going to go, okay, that's 2.5 milliliters because half of 5 is 2.5. And then a quarter teaspoon is going to be a quarter of 5. So if I just go on my calculator, 5 divided by quarter, I end up with 1.25 milliliters. Okay. I know it says show your work, but this is somewhat straightforward for the beginning bit. Okay, so we have 1 teaspoon is 5 milliliters. And then we have a tablespoon. It tells us a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons. So that's just triple whatever a teaspoon was. And 1 teaspoon was 5, so 3 is going to be 15 milliliters. So I was completely good up to this point. I'm like, this whole table makes sense. Everything's kind of flowing. I have teaspoons 5, 3 teaspoons 15. Everything's looking good. And then I got to this 1 cup is 8 ounces. And I'm just like, this has nothing to do with anything we've talked about so far. So then I just went on the internet and I looked up how many milliliters are in a cup. And it turns out that 1 cup, this is just from the internet, is, make sure I get this right, 236.56 milliliters. So that is just the conversion from a cup to milliliters, so imperial to metric. I don't know what the significance of the 8 ounces is. Maybe that has to do with the chart we had up above here. So now we're talking about pints again, and a pint is 16 fluid ounces, and that's kind of double a cup, I guess, because 1 cup is 8 ounces. If you double a cup, you get a pint, 16. I guess that's where they're going with this. All right, so I double this, and I get 568.19 And how do I know that? Well, 1 pint is 16 ounces. And basically to get from 8 to 16, I just multiply by 2. So that's all I did to get from there to there. I just multiplied by 2. A quart is 2 pints, so I just double what I have again, just multiplying by 2, and I get 1136.38. And then a gallon is 4 quarts. So 1136.38 times 4. I didn't do that one. Uh, 4,545.5. That's a lot of 4s and 5s. 45455. Okay, so there you go. That's going to allow you to do just about any volume conversion that you'll encounter in the rest of the learning guide or on the exams and things like that. So you have your imperial column here, you have your metric column here. The conversions aren't really nice and happy. They're kind of decimals and a little bit difficult to follow, but we're just going to do conversions like we've always done them, and it doesn't really matter. We're just going to plug them into our calculators anyways, and we're going to hope we end up where we need to end up. So moving on here, maybe let's try these first couple and then, yeah. So recipe calls for 5 cups of flour, 1 cup of butter, and 2.5 cups of powdered sugar. So I'm just going to write that down again. 5 cups flour, 1 cup of butter, and 2.5 cups of sugar. All right, so there's kind of 3 parts to the question. Everything that I have in my kitchen only measures in metric. So how much of each of these do you need? So what we're going to do is convert from cups into milliliters. So if I go to the chart above that we just finished on the previous page, I see that 1 cup is 236.56 mils. And I'm going to write that down here. 1 cup is 236.56 milliliters. All right, so we have our conversion to get from cups into milliliters, and we just need to do it 3 times essentially to figure out how much of each we need. So I forget when it was. It's been a while now. Haven't done unit conversions for a while, but I'm going to remind you, if I have 5 cups and I want to multiply by something and get rid of cups, I'm going to put the thing that I want to get rid of on the bottom. So cup on the bottom, I'm going to put milliliters on the top. And looking at my conversion here, I know that 1 cup is 236.56 milliliters. So the reason I want to put cups on the bottom is because when I divide cups by cups, they cancel, and I'm left with units of milliliters. So just to do the math here, 5 times 236.56 that gives me 1,182.8 milliliters. So 5 cups of flour is 1,000 or 1,100 milliliters. So it's just over a liter of flour if I had a big measuring cup, I could do that calculation, pour some flour into it. 1 cup of butter, I know that 1 cup is exactly 236.56 milliliters, so I don't really even need to do a conversion there. That's just 236.56, done. That's just the conversion factor. 1 cup is 236. So I don't have to do any work, which is kind of nice. And then 2.5 cups of sugar. So I'll start with 2.5 cups. I'm going to multiply it by my conversion factor. So my conversion factor takes me from where I am in cups to where I need to go in milliliters. So if I want to get rid of cups, I put it on the bottom, and I have milliliters on the top. And the relationship here is 1 cup is 236.56 milliliters. So exact same calculation as I just did for flour over here. All right, so to do the multiplication, 2.5 times 236.56, and then I hit equals, and I get 591.4. Making sure to include units. So cups cancel, cups gone, end up with units of milliliters. So this is the exact same stuff as we were doing before, converting units, except before it was usually distances. We were talking about lengths of measure, inches to centimeters, centimeters to kilometers. Now we're just doing the exact same process, except we're using volumes instead. All right, let's look at number 6, and then I'll give you guys a few to do. All right, number 6 says, Don just bought a Chevy Avalanche. The tank is 24 gallons, and we're in BC now, and fuel is $1.17 a liter. How much does it cost Don to fill up his tank if it was completely empty? So the first little suggestion here is, how many liters are in 1 US gallon? Now we just did the conversion up above in this chart. 1 gallon is 4,545 milliliters, or if we divided that by 1,000 to convert it to liters, it's 4.545 or 4.55 liters. So I'm going to write that down. 1 gallon is 4.55 liters. So 4.5 liters to the gallon. All right, let's figure out how big this gas tank is. We have 24-gallon gas tank. We're in BC now. We need to convert this into liters. So we're going to have to multiply by our conversion factor, and we just wrote that down right here. So if I'm trying to get rid of gallons, I'm going to put it on the bottom. There's my gallons. I'm going to put liters on the top because I want to end up with units of liters. That's the whole point of this question, is to get from gallons to liters. I'm going from gallons, I want to get rid of it, I put it on the bottom. Now what's the relationship between liters and gallons? Well, we just wrote that down and we said 1 gallon is 4.55 liters. So now I just need to do the math. If I multiply my top, I get 24 times 4.5, and then I divide by 1, or just write out the answer. I don't need to really divide by 1. So I get 24 times 4.55. 109.2. It's going to be expensive to fill this up. Gallons on the top and bottom cancel, and I'm left with units of liters, which is what I wanted. Now that's kind of the first step of the problem. Figure out how big the tank is. Now each liter costs $1.17, so $1.17 per liter. So what I need to do is take my price here, $1.17 per liter, and I need to multiply it by how many liters I have, 109.2 liters. Now, one really cool thing about these kind of unit conversion type questions is when I do this, my units are going to cancel again, and I get liters on the top and bottom, and I'm left with units of dollars. So 117 times 109.2 is going to tell me how much it costs. I end up with $127.76. And put my dollar sign there because I need to make sure I include units in my calculation. All right, so example number 7, I started to read through it and then I looked at the example in the course. And it's kind of funny how they did it in the course. They actually calculated the volume and, compared the volumes and then the cost on either side. But the question just is asking, where should he buy it for the best price? It doesn't matter how much he needs to buy. It just matters which one's a better price. So plant land is $23.50 per yard cubic yard. And garden works is $28.50 per meter cubed. And the question asks, which one's the better deal? So instead of calculating the volume of a circle of this size and a whatever rectangle of this size, let's just figure out which one's the better deal. In the course, it goes into all this volume calculations and this and that, and I'm like, it doesn't really matter. We just want to know which one's a better deal because that's what the question's asking. So we can do either way. We can convert this into dollars per meter cubed, or we can convert the second one into dollars per yard cubed. It doesn't matter. I forget which one I did. What did I decide? I converted 2850 meters cubed into yards cubed. So maybe we'll just do that. So this is one of these really, really tricky calculations where we're converting volumes. And we can't just use a conversion factor because it's not meters to yards, it's meters cubed to yards cubed. So let's start with 2850 per meter cubed. Now, I want to get rid of meters cubed, and it's on the bottom, so I'm going to put it on the top. That way it'll cancel. And I want to end up with units of yards cubed on the bottom. So if I go to my formula sheet, I need to figure out the relationship between meters and yards. 1 yard is 0.915 meters. Now, my calculation here isn't from yards to meters, it is from yards cubed to meters cubed. So what I want to do is, in my calculator, I want to cube these things. Length times width times height, a volume, it's cubed. The first one here, 1 times 1 times 1, is just going to be 1 yard cubed. But this 0.915 is going to be 0.915 times 0.915 times 0.915. or I could use the cube button on my calculator, but that's just what the math is. I'm multiplying 0.915 by itself 3 times. That's cubing something. Hit equals, and I get 0.7660, we'll just call it 0.7661. So this is kind of the tricky bit of this question. It's not just from yards to meters, it's the relationship between yards cubed and meters cubed. So I know that 1 yard cubed is 0.7661 meters cubed. Just taking this relationship and switching it into a fraction. All right, just to do the math, I have 28.5 on the top, this on the top, and then I have 1 on the bottom, and there's nothing here, so it's 1. So I'm just multiplying 28.5 times 0.7661. That is going to convert my cost per meter cubed into the cost per yard cubed. So $21.83. And if I look at my units, I had meters on the bottom. I put it on the top to get rid of it. I'm left with dollars. That's why I have dollars here. And then on the bottom, I have yards cubed. So this is dollars per yard cubed. All right, so now we can compare these two values. This was 2350 per yard cubed, and this is 2183 per yard cubed. So the question asks, which one's a better deal? Well, I'd rather pay $21 than $23, so GardenWorks is a better deal. Just cheaper. All right, how are we doing there? That's kind of it for the lesson. That's all there is to it. I'm going to just cross off 8 just because there's a few questions here at the end which you guys can do. Now, this is kind of like worked through all of the lessons, the volume and surface area and all the things we've done, conversions. Now at the very end, there's just a series of questions for you guys to go through. It's kind of like a review before the test. So what I'm going to do is, instead of having you guys do all of these questions, I'd like to just cross a few off to make your lives a little easier, just less work essentially, because it's a lot of repetition. And sometimes in math, repetition's good. Other times it just takes longer. And I have a feeling this is kind of just a take longer situation. So putting it all together, this is kind of like a summary of everything we've done in this unit. And this is kind of the work you're going to do that I'm going to mark before you write the test. So I'll just circle the ones I'd like you guys to do, and I'll cross off the ones that you don't need to do. If you do them all, perfect. If you do the ones I ask for, that's good too. Do all of number 1. That won't take very long. And convert each of the following imperial units from decimals to fractions. So converting from decimals to fractions, and then number 3, converting from fractions to decimals. Those are really straightforward, won't take very long. So we'll do 1, 2, and 3. We'll do all of those. All right, so number 4 is converting from imperial to imperial. So using your formula sheet, you need to figure out the relationship between the units, use that to do the conversions. So let's go with 4A, and we won't worry about B. We'll do 5A and C, and we'll ignore B and D. Number 6, this type of question comes up a lot. What is the total thickness of a wall made from 5-inch drywall nailed to 3/4 stud over 3.5-inch insulation? I'd like you to do that. It's essentially just adding fractions. You can plug it right into your calculator and see what you end up with. Shouldn't be too terribly difficult. The next page, number 7, how many strokes needed to raise the truck 1 3/4 inches? Let's not worry about 7. Let's do 8. That's a question. 8 feet by 36 inches, convert it to yards. So convert it first to yards, then multiply them, and you should be able to do that. Let's not worry about 9. Let's do 10A. Not worry about B or C. Let's do 11A and C. Let's not worry about B or D. Let's not worry about 12. Thirteen shouldn't be too terribly bad. So we'll do 13. Just making sure so there's 2 and a bit more pages here. All right, so we're going to do 13. 14 walking lights are placed in perimeter rectangle, 18 inches. How many lights are needed? Let's do 14, that'll be a good one. Let's not worry about 15. I like 16. That looks good. We'll do 16. We'll do 17. Those are both good. What do we want on 18? Do we want the cylinder or do we want the pyramid? What do you prefer? Any preference out there? Or am I just going to pick one? Anybody have any? Well, there's a cone and a sphere as well on the next page. We need to pick 2 of the 4 shapes. Nobody cares? Kaylin might care. Some are easier than others. Draw sticks. I was just hoping you'd kind of just put in a shape in there so I could do it. Let's do the pyramid. I like the pyramid, Emery. Thank you. Let's not worry about the cylinder. That's just too easy. And then the pyramid's kind of like the cone, so we won't do the cone. Let's do the sphere. That'll be fun. Calculate the surface area, 3 visible faces. Let's not worry about that. Number 20 and 21 are kind of like what we've just done today. So there wasn't a ton of these types of questions in the examples, so I'll get you to do 20 and 21. We won't worry about 22. And 23, there's no room there, so we won't do that one either. 24 shouldn't take very long, just the length of a pencil. And then 25 and 6, just have a go at these in terms of measuring those distances. So what I'm going to do is maybe we'll give you guys a few minutes. We're going to go to 11:30. What I'll do is maybe give you 15 minutes, and all I want you to do is just go through as many questions as you can. At the end of 15 minutes, if you run into any problems with any of the questions, we can go over them together in class. So the last kind of 15 minutes of the day here, we'll go through these questions together. So just try them. Do the easy ones first if you want, or you can go right to the hard ones, whatever you think's hard, and if you run into problems, you can ask. Generally speaking, if one of you has a problem with a question, then most of you probably have them, so it's kind of nice to go through them together. But essentially, that's it for the unit. So it's kind of like a little wrap up at the end. If you can get your learning guide submitted, I'll get the password out to you. You can write the test. And I'm aiming for all of this stuff to kind of be done before next class. If at the beginning of next class you have any questions about any of the learning guide that you ran into issues with or whatnot, I can answer those questions. But in a perfect world, you would do all these questions over the next few days. I won't see you again for another week. So we're kind of running into this kind of one class a week because of these short weeks. So you guys really need to do this stuff so we can start moving on to the next unit. So I'll put the timer up for 15 minutes. That'll give you guys a chance to look at some of these questions. If you run into problems, you can ask. The last 15 minutes of class, I'll go through anything you guys have issues with. Hopefully that sounds okay. Your 15 minutes starts now-ish. All right, guys, welcome back. If you ran into any problems, you want to throw them into chat, I'd be happy to do them. Other than that, I just kind of want to wrap up this unit. So are we there? Can we start with green check? Let's go with that just to make sure everybody's still there. You haven't fallen asleep on your keyboard. I'm waiting for that one day, somebody to just the letter like K appears or something, because that's where your nose hit the keyboard and it's like K, showing up. Awesome, thanks guys. Did anyone run into problems? Or it's just gonna be a matter of doing these questions? It's just obviously gonna take some time. It's not like you probably got through all, whatever, 20-ish questions in the 15 minutes I gave you. All right, I don't see a ton of questions coming in, so we'll just assume you guys just need some time to do this stuff. What I'm going to say is this. The learning guide, so we kind of started at the midway through this learning guide at question 15, and then we did all these sort of lessons. We did the volume one today, and then this putting it all together. So you're going to finish these questions. When you're done, you're going to use your phone or whatever you want, whatever is easiest for you, and you're going to put all of the pages into one PDF document. So if you use something like CamScanner or TinyScan, or if you just want to take pictures of each of the pages and put it into a Word document, I don't really care as long as I can A, read it, and B, it's one document. I don't want to have to open 26 pages of documents. So if you're having issues submitting one file, let me know. I will walk you through the steps. But I think you guys should be okay. So Unit 3 Learning Guide Dropbox. This is where you're going to submit this learning guide. So if I click in here, you've done this in planning. You've probably done this in English a bunch of times. Talks a little bit about the learning guides, but down at the bottom, it says, somewhere down here, add submission. Yours is going to look different because I have the teacher view up. Click add submission. The window comes up and you scroll down again and it says, what file do you want to submit? So if I click on the little page with the plus sign, I can search through my computer under browse here and find a document. Balancing, sure, let's use that one. I go upload this file, and then the file will appear here, and then I go save changes. And once I've done that, I've submitted my learning guide. So that's the sort of process you guys need to go through to get that submitted. Once it's submitted, give me like a couple hours. Usually if you submit it today, I'll have the password sent out to you by the end of the day, the next day. So give me a day to get a password out to you. Once you receive that password, you're going to need your formula sheet and a calculator, scientific calculator, and you sit down at your computer and you write your test. Your parents will give you the password, make sure you're not cheating, and that's kind of the process. And we do that for every unit. I think there's 8 units in the course. So that is the process of getting those tests done. Does anybody have any questions about submitting, writing a test, expectations, anything related to that sort of stuff? All right, perfect. Well, I'm going to put some dates into the course. I'm going to say that I would love it if this Unit 3 was done by next day, but I do understand that you're going to take some time to go through the questions that I assigned today, and if you run into problems, you can ask about them in class next day. But if you don't have any questions to ask in class next day, that means you're done. So you should submit your learning guide. I would like the learning guide to be in, what's today's? Today's Wednesday. If you could get it in by Friday, I'll give you the password Friday, and then you can write the test over the weekend. I'm not sure when class is next week. I don't know if we have the schedule up. Nope. September 26th to 30th. October 3rd to 7th. No, we don't have next week's schedule up. It looks like a really old schedule. All right, so we'll have class next week. I would love it if you wrote the test before class next week, and that's kind of where we're at. So if you absolutely have questions you want to ask before next class, At the beginning of next class, you can ask them, but then you'll write the test the same day as you have next. The problem we run into is I don't want you guys to kind of overlap your units. So we're dealing with Unit 3 now. I want to get Unit 3 done, and then we'll move into Unit 1, I think we'll jump to next. If you're kind of lingering into Unit 3 and then we start Unit 1, now you're trying to do Unit 1 and 3 at the same time, that's not going to be a very successful combination. So get this stuff done, submit it as soon as possible. I'd love it if you had your learning guide in on Friday and then you wrote your test before next class. That's kind of my timeline. I'll put some dates in the course, but that's it for me for now. Hopefully you guys come out on Friday to McMillan Farm. Sign up is right here. I forget the time. I think it's like 12 to 1 or something like that. I go with my family every year. It's lots of fun. It's tractor ride. You get to launch pumpkins with a huge slingshot, corn maze. It's a good time at McMillan Farms, and hopefully we'll see you there Friday. But if not, we'll see you next class. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon.